There are a very few landmarks that are as recognizable as the most famous engineering disaster of all time, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Its images have appeared in countless movies, books, photos, and magazines, and in this age of Photoshop and video editing, it seems almost surreal or fake. And when people see it for the first time, they almost get tempted to stick around to see if it will fall down, but it doesn't, and it hasn't been for the last 800 years. Other engineering mistakes end up in a failure in a matter of days to weeks, but Leaning Tower of Pisa leans, and leans some more. It is this lean or tilt that has made it a favorite for tourists and engineers alike. So what's going on? Is it defying gravity? Do normal rules of science not apply here? Why did it stop when it did, and why not tilt any further? Can it tilt any further without falling? It seems like this very familiar building still has quite a lot of mysteries that need to be solved. So let's start with what went wrong and why the tower is tilting. Pisa is situated on the west coast of Italy at the mouth of River Arno, making it an ideal port. During the 12th century, Pisa has become a powerful trading, artistic, and military hub. During this period, a couple of centuries prior to Italian Renaissance, notable cities like Pisa, Florence, Venice, they flaunted their wealth by building marvelous religious buildings. So in the early 1100s, Pisa set about constructing a collection of religious buildings, all set to be adorned by white marble. The largest of these buildings was a cathedral surrounded by the baptistry and the bell tower. Work on the bell tower began in 1173, and like other buildings, it was based on the Roman style of architecture with slender marble columns raising towards the heavens. The only problem was that the tower started tilting one side while it was being constructed. The builders tried to correct this problem by building it unevenly, with one side columns being slightly bigger for the tower to appear straight. Then the tower began tilting the other way, the way it's tilting right now, but the tilt still stayed. By the 14th century, it was clear that the bell tower had a major issue with construction. By then, it was already known as Torre Pedante, the Leaning Tower. However, that did not stop the construction from continuing, and the tower was finished in 1370, a full 8 stories tall. It was completed, but it still had a tilt of about 3 degrees. The Leaning Tower eventually became world famous and now is considered one of the 7 wonders of the world. So what went wrong? 2 big factors definitely contributed to the famous tilt in the Leaning Tower of Pisa. One of them, the unstable ground of the area, and the second one being the inadequate foundation beneath the tower. The builders brushed off the earlier concerns because there were 2 massive religious buildings already standing on the site when the work began on the tower. The baptistry and the cathedral are both massive structures, and their tilt is not observed by the naked eye. Probably came as a shock to the builders when there was a tilt when the 3rd out of the 8 stories was built. At first, they tried to hide it with optical illusions by lengthening the column on one side to make the tower look more level, but the tower started tilting to the other side. Builders then started making the columns on the other side bigger. In the 1900s, scientists started studying the tower and found out the tilt was increasing and the rate was getting worse. In 1989, the tower was closed off to the public and work began on stabilizing the tower. In a careful effort, soil was removed from under the high side of the tower. In 2001, the tower was finally open for tourists, and engineers believe that the tower is safe for another 300 years. When it comes to the basic scientific principle, the Leaning Tower of Pisa depends on the principle of center of mass. Center of mass means the point where the mass of the object is concentrated. For an object that is uniform throughout, the mass will be concentrated towards the center of the object. For example, if you look at a puck, a hockey puck will have the center of mass pretty close to the center of the puck. But if you look at a hockey stick, the center of mass will be closer to the head of the hockey stick rather than towards the center. Now, why is it so important? It is important in the case of Leaning Tower of Pisa, because if the center of mass is within the base of the tower will not tip. However, if the center of mass is outside of the base of the tower will tip over. The renovations made by the engineers in the 1990s made sure that the tilt of the tower does not increase enough that the center of mass of the tower goes outside the base of the tower. This ensures that towers keeps on standing for the next 300 years for everybody to enjoy.